My name is Genevieve Hart. I am 35 years old, and I make my living putting out other people's fires in Washington, D.C. At 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzed once, and I watched my own life catch. I was sitting in the back booth of a dim hotel bar off K Street, shoulder to shoulder with Senator Sterling's exhausted chief of staff. He kept talking about polling swings and suburban moms, but his words had turned into background music. My eyes were locked on a notification from an Instagram account I hadn't opened in months. Not my real one. The quiet one. The account I use when I need to see what people post when they think no one important is watching. Close friend's story. From Marlo, my sister. The story title sat there like it was laughing at me. The most beautiful bride. I tapped it with my thumb, still expecting something petty. A filtered selfie. A sponsored candle. A healing journey quote over a sunset. Instead, the video opened on a vineyard at golden hour. Rows of vines like neat stitches across the hills. White chairs lined up in perfect half-moons. A wooden arch draped in cream fabric and soft flowers. And then the camera swung. Marlo filled the frame, smiling like she'd just won something she never earned. She was wearing a dress that didn't belong on her body. It belonged in my memory. It belonged in the climate-controlled preservation box I had paid for, in a storage facility with a keypad and a manager who always called me ma'am. Vintage lace, pearls sewn by hand, a scalloped sleeve that hid the scar on my shoulder. My dress, my chest didn't tighten. It hollowed out, like someone had scooped the air from inside me and left me standing there, upright, functioning, empty. The camera tilted down as she turned, showing the hem, the little pattern I'd obsessed over until 3 a.m. on the floor of my apartment years ago, sketching with a pen that kept running out of ink. A dress I'd saved for, paid for, protected like it was part of my body. Then a hand slid into frame, steady and familiar, resting at her waist. Griffin, my husband, he was in the tuxedo I bought for our wedding. The one he claimed made him feel like a man who finally belongs in the room. He leaned in and kissed her like the world was kind, and they were the only two people in it. The chief of staff's voice cut through. We can pivot the narrative if we... I stood up so fast the booth seat scraped the floor. I'm sorry, I said, and it didn't even sound like my voice. I have to go. He blinked up at me, startled. Is everything okay? I looked at my phone again. Marlo's story continued. She pulled back from Griffin's mouth, breathless, holding her champagne flute up to the camera. Tonight, she mouthed. Finally, my stomach sank with a clean, sharp certainty. This wasn't a photo shoot. This wasn't a fantasy post. This was happening right now. I forced my face into something neutral. No, I told the chief of staff, smoothing my skirt like I was about to walk into a boardroom instead of a betrayal. But it's going to be. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting. DC lights blurred in the wet pavement. I got into my car and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead while my heartbeat tried to climb out of my throat. Every part of me wanted to scream. Every part of me wanted to drive until the tires smoked, rush in, shove her, slap him, tear the whole scene down with my bare hands. But I don't do messy. I do controlled damage. I do timing. I do optics. I do consequences that look accidental from a distance. I opened the story again and paused it on the frame where the vineyard sign was visible behind them. 4 seconds. A clean shot. Enough. Chateau Lucerne, Napa Valley. My fingers moved before my emotions caught up. I typed the venue name into my browser. Packages, event policies, live stream add-ons, vendor rules, deposit schedules. There it was, plain and cheerful on the website like it wasn't a loaded weapon. Private live stream portal for guests. Of course they had one. Influencer girlies loved a stream. They loved an audience. They loved a comment section more than they loved a marriage license. I swallowed hard and clicked around until I hit the portal login page. Password required. Good. A locked door always meant someone thought they were safe. My phone rang and I almost flinched. It was Griffin. The screen showed his name like it was mocking me. I didn't answer. A second later, a text appeared. Hey babe, running late at the site. Signals spotty, love you. I stared at it until my vision went warm. I could practically hear his voice saying it, casual, practiced, like breathing. Like lying was just part of the architecture of our marriage. Then another message popped up. From Marlo. You around tonight? I might need you for something important. My hands started to shake. Not from sadness. From the realization that she was still trying to use me while stealing me. I took one long breath in through my nose. The way my therapist taught me when I'm about to walk into a room full of angry men and make them behave. Okay, if you're still here with me right now, quick real-life pause, because this part still makes my hands go cold. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me your city, state, or country. All right, now let me take you back, because this didn't start at 6:47 p.m. It started years ago, in a house where I learned that my job was to absorb other people's chaos and call it love. Marlo was always the star, the soft one, the delicate one, the one my mother protected like she was made of glass. If Marlo cried, everyone stopped moving. If I cried, my mother asked what I did to cause it. When I was 16, I worked weekends at a coffee shop in Arlington and saved every tip in a jar to buy a used car. I still remember the weight of that jar when I finally carried it to the kitchen. I thought my mother would smile. Instead, she unscrewed the lid, counted my money, and said, "Your sister has talent, Genevieve. She needs classes. You can take the bus for a little longer." When I got into my dream program, my mother hugged me and then whispered in my ear, "Don't talk about this in front of Marlo. She's sensitive." Sensitive. That word became a shield around her and a cage around me. By the time I built my career, I was already trained. I fixed. I smoothed. I paid. I apologized first even when I wasn't wrong because it kept the house quiet. And that's the exact kind of woman Griffin fell in love with, or pretended to. We met at a fundraiser in Georgetown. He was charming in that effortless way men get when they think they've found someone useful. He talked about design and space like it was religion. He told me I was brilliant. He told me he'd never met a woman like me. He also had student loans that made his eyes go cloudy when he thought about them. I paid them off in our second year of marriage. Not because he demanded it. He never demanded. Griffin was too smart for demands. He just sighed a lot. He stared at bills like they were personally insulting him. He talked about how stress killed creativity and how he couldn't do his best work while carrying that weight. So I lifted it. That's what I did. That's what I was trained to do. Marlo drifted in and out of our home like she had a key to everything, even the parts of me that were supposed to be private. She'd show up with a suitcase after a breakup. She'd borrow my clothes, my skincare, my contacts, my patience. Griffin always played the hero. He'd offer her tea. He'd fix the cabinet door in the guest room. He'd compliment her outfit. "Your sister just needs support," he'd tell me when I raised an eyebrow. And I wanted to believe him, because believing him meant I didn't have to admit the truth. But the truth showed up in small humiliations, like the night I hosted a work dinner for a partner at my firm, trying to earn a promotion that would put my name on the letterhead. Marlo stopped by in a tight dress that looked like she'd dressed for a nightclub. She sat at my table like she belonged there. Halfway through dessert, she laughed and said, "Genevieve is married to her phone. Griffin basically lives alone." My boss's wife blinked like she didn't know what to do with that. I looked at Griffin, waiting for him to defend me. He smiled and said, "She does work a lot." And that was the moment I felt something in my chest crack, quiet and private, like a hairline fracture no one else could see. After that, things got stranger. Griffin started taking weekend site visits to Napa for a project that was always almost ready to launch. Marlo suddenly had a mystery client and couldn't say who, but it was huge and aligned with her energy. And then my preserved wedding dress disappeared. When I called the storage facility, the manager said, "Your sister picked it up. She had authorization." Authorization from my mother. My mother was already sick then, already tired, already drifting between lucid and cruel. When I confronted her, she sighed like I was the problem. "It's just fabric," she said. "Stop being dramatic, let your sister shine. Let your sister shine." I heard that sentence in my head while sitting in my car outside a hotel bar in DC, staring at Marlo shining in my dress with my husband's hand on her waist. I opened my bank app with fingers that felt numb. I scrolled through the last month's transactions, and this time I didn't let myself skim. I stared at every line item like it was a confession. Catering deposit, floral wholesaler, linens, a charge from a Napa transportation company, all on the card Griffin used for household emergencies. My throat tightened, not because I couldn't breathe, but because I finally understood something simple and brutal. They didn't just betray me. They funded it with me. I went back to the live stream portal and typed the venue name again, slower, more focused. I clicked forgot password, just to see what email address it was tied to. A masked hint popped up. GH, my email. I stared at the screen, frozen. Of course, because at some point, they had used my information to set this up. Because it was easier. Because it was there. Because I was always the one handling logistics. Always the one signing, paying, organizing. I clicked the reset link. A message appeared. Password reset sent. My phone buzzed with an email notification immediately. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just sat there in the driver's seat in the dark, looking at the proof that they were careless. And careless people always left trails. I opened the email. I clicked the link. I set a new password with shaking hands. Then the portal loaded. A countdown appeared on the screen, bright and cheerful. Ceremony begins in 1 hour and 12 minutes. And beneath it, a tiny preview thumbnail of the live stream camera angle. The aisle, the arch, the chairs filling in one by one as guests arrived. I watched a staff member straighten the fabric on the arch like this was a normal night. I watched the camera adjust exposure for the perfect sunset. I watched my own life get staged for someone else's highlight reel. And in that moment, sitting alone with the glow of my phone lighting my face, I made a promise that felt calmer than rage and more dangerous than grief. They wanted a show. Fine. I reached into my purse, pulled out my laptop, and opened a fresh document like I was at work because I was. This was a crisis. It just happened to be mine. I started with a list, not of feelings, not of tears, time, assets, legal leverage, witnesses, receipts. Then I dialed one number from my contacts, someone I hadn't needed in a year. When he answered, his voice was sleepy. "Genevieve, it's late." "It's not late," I said, eyes locked on the countdown. "It's right on time. I need you to pull everything Griffin has touched in the last 6 months. Every email, every invoice, every transfer. I'm on the family cloud plan and he's sloppy. Tell me what's real." There was a pause, then his tone changed. "Awake now, sharp. You sure you want to do this?" I watched the live stream preview. A woman in a cream dress stepped into frame, adjusting the train. Marlo. I could see the pearl detail, even from the blurry thumbnail. "I'm sure," I said quietly, "and I need it fast." "All right," he breathed. "Stay on the line, open your laptop. We're going to start with the shared backups." I inhaled once, deep, controlled. Outside my windshield, DC traffic flowed like nothing had happened. Inside my screen, my sister's wedding waited like a loaded gun. And the timer kept counting down. And my pulse finally settled into something colder than fear. Dashiell stayed on the line while I opened my laptop in the parking lot, the interior light of my car turning my hands a sickly shade of white. I watched my fingers move across the keyboard like they belonged to someone else, someone trained for emergencies, someone who didn't have a sister wearing her wedding dress on a live stream. "First thing," Dashiell said, voice low, all business now. "Do you still pay the phone plan?" "Yes," I whispered. "Everything. Phones, cloud storage, the whole family bundle. I never took him off." "Good," he replied. "That means you have legal access to backups and shared data if the account holder is you. Don't say anything to him. Don't text him. Every notification can make a liar more careful." I swallowed. "He already texted me. Did you respond?" "No." "Perfect. Now open the family cloud dashboard. Look for devices. I want a list." A list, that word steadied me. A list meant structure. A list meant I could breathe. I pulled up the dashboard and there it was. My phone, my laptop, Griffin's phone, Griffin's tablet, a device labeled Marlo MacBook. My stomach turned. I had never added my sister. I would have remembered that. I would have felt the irritation of it. "I see your laptop," I said. Dashiell went quiet for a beat. "That means somebody added her to the family group." My throat tightened. "Griffin, or your sister used his device to do it," he said. "Either way, it's sloppy. Sloppy is good for you." I clicked into backups. The screen filled with dates, little file sizes, categories, messages, photos, notes, location history, app data. My hands started shaking again. "Dashiell," I said, and my voice cracked on his name. "I don't know if I can stomach it." "You don't have to read everything," he said gently. "You only have to find the pieces that hold up in daylight. We need proof that stands on its own without your emotions attached to it. Receipts, transfers, contracts, dates, names, dates, numbers." I opened messages first, because the betrayal always lived there. Because people never stop talking when they think the conversation is private. A thread labeled Marlo popped up under Griffin's recent messages. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't even disguised. My fingers hovered over it. Then I clicked. The first thing I saw was a photo. A mirror selfie. The vineyard bathroom, judging by the stone countertop and the little basket of fancy hand towels. Marlo stood in my dress, the bodice pulled tight, her mouth puckered like she was blowing a kiss at herself. Under it, Griffin had typed, "You look like you were made for it." Marlo replied, "I was. She was just renting it." I stared at that sentence until it blurred. Renting it, like my life was something that came with a monthly fee. Dashiell's voice cut in. "What do you see?" "Words," I said. The kind that make you understand you married a stranger. Screenshot, he said. Don't react, just screenshot. I did it, then another, then another. And as the messages scrolled by, a timeline formed like a bruise blooming under skin. Little jokes about me. Little complaints about my work. Little private celebrations when I was out of town handling someone else's mess. One message stopped me cold. Griffin wrote, "She'll be in Chicago next Thursday. That gives us a clean window." Marlo replied, "Perfect. That's when the venue needs final signatures. I can do her handwriting." My mouth went dry. Signatures. I looked up at the portal countdown again. 1 hour and 6 minutes. "What does the venue require?" Dashiell asked, like he could hear the shift in my breathing. "Signatures," I whispered. "She said she can do my handwriting." "Okay," he said, voice suddenly sharper. "Now we're talking about fraud with paperwork. That matters. Scroll, find attachments, find emails, find the contract." I pulled up Griffin's email backup next. My heart pounded in my ears while my screen loaded a list of messages. Most of them boring, most of them safe, most of them not. And then I saw it. Subject line: "Final invoice and event policy acknowledgement from Chateau Lucerne Events." My fingers went numb. I opened it and the first thing I saw was the PDF. A neatly formatted contract. Dates, deposit schedule, live stream add-on, vendor rules, a clause about termination of event if fraudulent payment methods were detected. I almost laughed, but it came out like a breath that didn't know what to do with itself. Termination. That word tasted like control. I scrolled down to the signature page. Client name: Genevieve Hart. Signature: my name in my handwriting. Not exactly, but close enough that someone glancing quickly would accept it. A slightly heavier loop on the G, a little too perfect on the H. My skin crawled. "I didn't sign this," I said out loud, to no one, because the car was empty, because the betrayal was everywhere. Dashiell's voice stayed calm. "We can compare it to your real signature later. For now, download it, save it in a folder, back it up somewhere separate, email it to yourself. Then print it when you can. Paper still scares people." I did what he said. Each click felt like loading ammunition into a weapon I never wanted to hold. Then I saw the payment details. Card ending in 1184. My card. A charge for the final deposit. A charge for the live stream service. A charge for an upgraded sound system. My hands curled into fists, so tight my nails bit my palms. I forced them to relax. I forced my breath to slow, because rage made you sloppy, and sloppy people lost. I clicked into the vendor list and something else snapped into focus. The florist, the caterer, the rental company, a security service I didn't recognize. Security. I frowned and opened the invoice attachment from the security service. It listed 2 guards assigned to monitor the ceremony entrance and escort unauthorized individuals off property. Unauthorized individuals. Me. My lips parted and no sound came out. Not because I was shocked, because I was impressed. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had planned for my reaction. They were building a trap that made me the crazy ex-wife crashing their love story, so they could throw me out and post about it later. My chest tightened with something bitter and familiar. This is what they always did. They provoked. They positioned. They made me look unhinged so my boundaries seemed like violence. I pictured my mother's face, the way she used to tilt her head when I tried to defend myself as a teenager. "Genevieve, stop being dramatic. Stop making everything about you. Let your sister have one thing, like my marriage, like my money, like my name on a contract I never signed." I wiped my palms on my skirt and forced my eyes back to the screen. "Dashiell," I said, and my voice was steadier now. "Can you get me the guest list?" "Already on it," he replied. "If the venue emailed it, it's in there. Search for seating chart or headcount or final attendee list." I typed headcount into the search bar. A file popped up. Guest list final. I opened it and scanned names. Most of them strangers. Most of them influencer friends with perfectly curated last names and couples I had never met. Then my eyes caught on something that made my stomach twist again. Eleanor Hart, my mother's name. I blinked hard, thinking I'd misread, but it was there, listed as a VIP guest with a note beside it. Reserved front row. Honoring the blessing. My throat burned. My mother was dead, and they were using her name like a prop, like a stamp of approval from beyond the grave. I put my hand over my mouth, and for a split second, grief surged up, raw and hot, almost enough to break my composure. Then I saw the next line. Genevieve Hart, attendance status. No, they had marked me as not attending my own marriage. Dashiell's voice softened. "Genevieve, you still with me?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, I'm here." "Good," he said. "Now listen. You have a contract with your forged signature. You have payments traced to your card. You have messages that show intent. That's enough to blow this up legally." "I don't just want legal," I whispered. staring at the live stream preview where guests were now taking their seats. I want consequence. There was a pause. Then we do consequence with clean hands, he said. We do it in a way that doesn't let them paint you as unstable. We do it like you do your job. I stared at the termination clause again. Termination of event in case of fraudulent payment methods. My breath slowed. You said paper scares people, I murmured. Yes, and venues, I said, voice turning precise. Care about liability. Dashiell made a low sound of approval. You're thinking. I opened a new email draft. My fingers hovered for a second. Then I typed the venue manager's address, the one listed in the contract. Subject, urgent. Fraud notice and contract dispute. My heart beat once heavy. I attached the contract PDF. I attached the screenshots of the messages about copying my handwriting. I attached a screenshot of the payments from my banking app. Then I typed, simple, clean, factual. I am the account holder and the card holder for the payment method used. I did not authorize this event. My signature was forged. I am requesting immediate confirmation of how you intend to proceed to avoid legal liability. I stared at the message. My finger hovered over send. Dashiell's voice was quiet now. If you send that, there's a chance the venue shuts it down before you get there. That's a win, but it might also cut off your ability to confront them in person. I looked at the live stream timer again. 58 minutes. I pictured Marlowe's smile. Griffin's kiss. My mother's name on their guest list like a blessing. I pictured security dragging me out while they played victims. And then I pictured something else. The arch, the chairs, the cameras, the perfect sunset. A stage. I didn't need to run onto it screaming. I could pull the floor out from under them while they were still standing in the spotlight. I'm going to do both, I said, and my voice surprised even me. I'm going to make sure the venue knows, and I'm still going. Dashiell exhaled. All right, then we need a second layer. What layer? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. I heard rapid typing on his end. Then he said, I just found something in his financial backups. A file labeled escrow. And Genevieve, this is not just your money. My grip tightened on the phone. What is it? It's a transfer log, he said, voice low. Multiple withdrawals, not from your joint account, from a client trust account at his firm. If this is real, your husband didn't just betray you. He stole from the wrong people. My mouth went dry again because there were consequences. And then there were consequences that arrived wearing suits and carrying subpoenas. How much? I managed. Dashiell hesitated, like he didn't want to say it. 6 figures at least. And I think the venue deposit is one of the transactions. My heartbeat thudded once, slow and heavy. This wasn't a wedding. This was evidence. I looked down at my email draft, at the attachments, at my finger hovering over send. Then I looked at the live stream preview again. Marlowe stepped into frame near the arch, adjusting the pearls on the bodice like she owned them. Griffin leaned close to her and whispered something that made her laugh. And I realized, with a clarity that felt like ice in my veins, that they weren't just stealing my life. They were building a crime scene inside my memories. I hit send. The email whooshed out of my outbox. And for the first time all night, I felt something like gravity return. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clean, clear, focused. Like I had finally stopped trying to understand the betrayal and started treating it as a case file. Dashiell stayed quiet for a second, listening to the faint sound of my breathing through the phone. Then he said, check for a reply. Event managers panic fast when you say forged signature and liability in the same sentence. I refreshed my inbox. Nothing. The live stream preview kept running, and I watched a staff member clip a microphone to Griffin's lapel. He smiled down at Marlowe, soft and adoring, like he wasn't currently standing on top of a pit he had dug with my money and his own greed. Okay, I said, voice tight. I'm going. Drive safe, Dashiell replied. And Genevieve, keep the line open in your car. If anything shifts, I'll tell you. I put my phone in the console holder, started the engine, and pulled out into traffic. The city didn't know what was happening to me. People walked their dogs, couples carried takeout, cars honked like it was a normal Friday night. My life was exploding, and everyone else was just living. It took 3 minutes for my email to get a response. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down at a new message from a name I didn't recognize. Ava Larkin, events director. Genevieve, thank you for reaching out. Please pull over if you are driving. We are reviewing your claim immediately. We will call you in 5 minutes. I didn't pull over. I drove with my eyes wide and my spine straight, like I was heading into battle wearing a suit instead of armor. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. I answered on the first ring. Ava. Her voice was tense, professional, the kind of tone someone uses when they are trying not to sound afraid. Ms. Hart, I'm calling from Chateau Lucerne. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I need you to be very clear. I can be clear, I said. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Are you stating, on record, that you did not authorize this event and that your signature was forged on our agreement? Yes, I replied. I am stating that. Are you also the cardholder for the payment method used for the deposits and final invoice? Yes, Ava exhaled. I could hear faint voices in the background, someone saying something quick, urgent, like a staff meeting turning into an emergency. Ms. Hart, she said, we have a problem. That's why I emailed, I answered, and my voice stayed calm because calm was the knife. We have already begun the ceremony, she said. We have guests seated, vendors contracted, and you have a forged signature, I cut in. And fraudulent payments, and you have liability. I understand the pressure, but you need to understand something too. If you proceed knowing the contract is disputed and the payment method is under a fraud claim. Silence, thick. Then Ava's voice dropped. We are suspending the ceremony until we verify. We are also contacting our legal counsel. But I need to ask you one more thing. Are you physically on your way here? Yes, I said. I am. Okay, she replied. Do not approach the ceremony space. Go to the main office building by the entrance. Ask for me. We will escort you. And Ms. Hart, please do not create a scene. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was perfect. I won't, I said softly. I don't have to. I ended the call and kept driving. My heart beat steady now. Like the storm inside me had finally found a direction. Dashiell's voice came through my car speakers again. She called you. She did, I said. They're suspending it. Good, he replied. Because I just confirmed the escrow file. It's real. Your husband touched a client trust account. That's felony territory. The word felony landed in my chest, like a lock clicking into place. I pictured Griffin's face when he realized I wasn't just a wife he could drain and discard. I was the person who knew how to turn paperwork into a guillotine. Send it, I told Dashiell. Everything, to me, and to his firm partner if you can find the right contact, the kind who hates surprises. I already found the managing partner's email, Dashiell said. Name is Sterling Hayes. Sterling, of course. Send, I repeated. Done, he said. The rest of the drive blurred into headlights and dark hills. I didn't cry. Tears would come later, in some quiet place where my body could finally admit it had been hurt. Right now, I was operating on something sharper than pain. When the vineyard gates finally appeared, lit up with warm decorative bulbs like a postcard, I felt my stomach twist. Chateau Lucerne looked exactly like the kind of place my sister always claimed she belonged in. Expensive, dreamy, photogenic. A valet stepped toward my car with a practiced smile, but it faltered when he saw my expression. I'm here to see Ava Larkin, I said, handing him my keys like I was checking into a hotel and not walking into a crime scene. He hesitated. Yes, ma'am, right this way. He didn't park my car. He waved another staff member over, and they guided me to a small office building near the entrance. Inside, everything smelled like flowers and money. A woman in a black blazer stood near the desk, her hair pulled back tight, her jaw clenched like she'd been swallowing panic for 10 minutes. Ms. Hart, she asked. Yes, I said. I'm Ava, she replied, stepping forward quickly. Her eyes flicked over my face, looking for tears, hysteria, anything she could label as unstable. She found nothing. Thank you for coming here first, she said, voice low. We have paused the efficient. The couple has been informed there is a contract issue. Are they angry? I asked. Ava's mouth tightened. The groom is insistent. The bride is crying. They are both claiming you are doing this out of spite. I nodded once like I expected that, because I did. Ava leaned closer. I need you to understand what we are doing. Our security has been instructed to keep you separated from the ceremony area until we confirm facts. We are also pulling the payment records now. If the cardholder is disputing payment, we cannot proceed. And the forged signature? I asked. We are reviewing, Ava replied. But I saw the screenshots you sent, the message about copying handwriting. It is concerning. Concerning. Like my life being stolen was a mild inconvenience. I didn't correct her. I didn't need her to validate me. I needed her to follow protocol. Where are they right now? I asked. Ava motioned toward a monitor on the desk. The live stream feed was up. The arch, the chairs, the sunset. The officiant stood awkwardly with his hands clasped, looking like a man who had realized he was part of something he didn't want to explain later. Marlowe stood at the front, clutching her bouquet too tightly. Griffin was beside her, his face tense, his smile gone. Guests murmured. Phones were up. Not just filming, but messaging, posting, whispering. Marlo kept looking around like she was searching for me in the shadows, like she needed to see the villain to complete the story she planned. I stayed right where I was, behind a closed office door, letting the scene unravel without my presence. Letting her panic grow without the satisfaction of confronting me. Ava's phone rang. She answered, turned away, listened, and her face went even paler. When she hung up, she looked at me like the floor had shifted under her heels. "Ms. Hart," she said carefully, "we have just received a call from an attorney representing a firm in Washington, D.C. They claim the groom is an employee under investigation for misappropriation of funds." My throat went tight, not with surprise, but with satisfaction so clean it scared me. "A forensic audit has been requested," Ava continued. "They asked us to preserve all records, including payment invoices, vendor receipts, and security footage." "Of course they did," I said. Ava swallowed. "We have to stop this event." I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just nodded, like this was an outcome I had forecast on a spreadsheet. "Do it," I said. Ava turned to the security supervisor standing by the door, a large man with an earpiece and a serious face. "Escort me to the ceremony," she ordered. "We are terminating the event under the fraud clause. Now." The supervisor nodded and opened the door. Ava looked at me. "Ms. Hart, I strongly recommend you stay here." "I will," I said. Her eyes narrowed, confused. "You are not going out there." I shook my head slowly. "Not yet." Ava didn't understand it, but she didn't have time to question it. She moved fast, heels clicking down the hallway. On the monitor, she appeared at the edge of the ceremony, stepping into the aisle with the security supervisor beside her. She spoke to the officiant, then turned toward Griffin and Marlo. Even without audio, I could read body language like it was my first language. Ava's posture was firm. Her hands were open, neutral, official. Termination. Griffin's face tightened. He leaned forward, jaw clenched, pointing, arguing. A man who had never been told no and thought he could redesign reality with volume. Marlo's mouth fell open. She looked around wildly, then grabbed Griffin's arm, pleading. She was performing distress, hoping someone would rescue her, the way my mother always did. But the crowd wasn't my mother. The crowd was 30 strangers who didn't sign up for fraud. One of the guests stood up, phone raised, filming. Another woman put her hand over her mouth. A man in a suit stepped forward, face dark with anger. I recognized that energy even through a screen. That was not a friend. That was someone who smelled liability. Then the real shift happened. A man walked up from the chairs and held out his phone to Griffin, shoving the screen near his face. Griffin's shoulders dropped a fraction, like he had just read something that changed the mask. Sterling Hayes, I thought, the managing partner. When Griffin spoke again, his mouth moved faster, more frantic. He grabbed Ava's arm. The security supervisor stepped in immediately, separating them. That was when the crowd truly reacted, because everyone understands that moment, even without context. When security steps in, it means you crossed a line. Marlo started crying, and even on the monitor, I could tell it wasn't grief. It was fear. Her hands went to the bodice of my dress, clutching it like the lace could protect her. Ava said something again, then handed Griffin a piece of paper. Griffin stared at it. His face changed, not into guilt, not into regret, into calculation, into the look of a man realizing he might not walk away from this. He turned his head slowly, scanning the crowd again, searching for me. And finally, I stood up. My legs felt steady. My hands didn't shake. My body moved like it remembered how to walk into rooms full of people who wanted to destroy someone and still control the outcome. A staff member tried to stop me at the hallway door. "Ma'am, please, I'm not going to the ceremony space," I said, and my voice was so calm it made him step back. "I'm going to the dressing suite." He blinked. "The dressing suite?" "Yes," I replied. "The dress belongs to me." He looked uncertain, but Ava's earlier instructions must have traveled fast, because another staff member nodded and guided me down a side corridor. The dressing suite was empty when I entered, the air still thick with perfume and hairspray. There were lipstick marks on a water bottle, a curling iron left plugged in, a bouquet of spare flowers on a chair. And there, draped over the back of a sofa like it was just fabric, was the garment bag, my original preservation bag, the one from the climate-controlled storage facility. My name was printed on the tag, Genevieve Hart. My throat burned, and for the first time all night, emotion rose up so hard it almost cracked my composure. Not because I wanted the dress back for myself. I didn't. That dress belonged to a version of me that kept paying to be loved. But seeing my name on that bag felt like reclaiming something deeper than lace. It felt like reclaiming ownership of my own story. I unzipped the bag. The dress was inside, but altered, strained, the shoulder seam pulled from stress. Ruined. Good. Not good because I wanted it ruined. Good because it meant I would never be tempted to romanticize the past again. I reached into my purse and pulled out a pair of scissors from my mini sewing kit, the one I kept for emergencies at events. A habit from years of fixing other people's public disasters. I didn't cut the dress. I cut the tag off the bag, the tag with my name. I held it in my palm like a small flag. Then I zipped the bag closed and lifted it carefully, like you do with something fragile that still matters even after it's broken. A commotion echoed faintly through the corridor. Voices, a shout, a higher scream, Marlowe's sharp and ugly. Then a new sound, a deeper authoritative tone. More than one voice. Law enforcement. Someone must have called, or Sterling Hayes did. I walked back into the hallway as two uniformed deputies moved past me toward the ceremony area. Their faces were neutral, but their posture was firm. They weren't here for a lover's spat. They were here for theft. I followed the staff member to a side exit that opened to the parking area. Cool night air hit my face, and I breathed it in like medicine. My phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. Ms. Hart, this is Sterling Hayes. We have removed Mr. Winters from the premises. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We will be in touch regarding restitution. Restitution. I stared at that word until it felt real. Then another buzz. A voicemail notification from Griffin. I didn't listen. I didn't need his voice ever again. I walked to my car with the garment bag in my hand like a quiet trophy. The valet looked at me with wide eyes. Ma'am, he whispered, are you okay? I looked at him and I realized something strange. I was not healed, not whole, but okay. I will be, I said. I drove away without headlights flashing behind me, without dramatic confrontation, without giving Marlowe the satisfaction of seeing my face while she fell apart. I didn't need to be present for her humiliation. I had already arranged it. 2 days later, back in D.C., I sat in my kitchen while my divorce attorney slid papers across my table. Griffin didn't contest a thing. He didn't have leverage anymore. He didn't have the money, the narrative, or the confidence. Sterling Hayes signed a sworn statement confirming Griffin had accessed a client trust account without authorization. The firm wanted distance. They wanted cleanliness. They wanted to show the world they were victims too. And I let them, because it meant Griffin would be held accountable by people who didn't care about his excuses. Marlowe tried to call me once from a number I didn't recognize. I knew it was her anyway. I could always feel her presence like a migraine. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail full of sobs and blame and lines she probably practiced in a mirror. I only caught one sentence before I deleted it. I didn't think you'd go this far. And that was the moment I finally understood her. She wasn't sorry. She was shocked the host stopped feeding the parasite. That weekend, I went to my therapist's office and sat down without pretending I was fine. I told her everything. The dress, the contract, the guest list with my mother's name on it. The way my sister tried to write a fairy tale using my money and my husband's mouth. My therapist listened, then asked me one simple question. What did you lose that night? I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I said, the illusion that loving someone harder can make them stop hurting you. She nodded like she'd been waiting for me to arrive there. When I got home, I opened my front door and Barnaby, my French bulldog, came running across the hardwood, nails tapping, snorting, wiggling like his whole body was made of joy. I scooped him up and pressed my face into his warm fur. Griffin didn't get the dog. Griffin didn't get the house. Griffin didn't get the story he planned to tell. He got consequences. That night, I carried the garment bag to the trash room in my building, held it for a second, then set it inside the bin like I was laying a chapter to rest. I didn't cry. I went back upstairs, locked my door, poured myself a glass of water, and stood at my window looking out at the city that had watched me save everyone else for years. Then I opened my laptop and drafted a new client intake form for a business I had been too busy to build before. My name at the top looks different now, not like a label, like a boundary. And for the first time in my life, I felt something that wasn't earned through fixing someone else's mess. I felt free.